So we live in this world now where many of the people are still asleep, and we've been programmed, we've been brainwashed throughout centuries, since the beginning of time. And we have oppressive government, we have religious institutions, we have medical institutions, we have, what am I leaving out? We have religious school, right? We have parents. These are all programs, and people want to fit in. They want to belong. And there's this evolutionary belief that if we speak up, we're not going to belong. And if we don't belong, we're not going to survive, because back in prehistoric times, if you stood up against the crowd, you were ousted from society. But it's not the case. It's all a matter of belief systems. It doesn't have to be that way. And so if we rely on religious institutions, we rely on the government, we rely on the FDA, the AMA, the different three-letter organizations to control us, we're at the mercy of the institutions. But the reality is that you are this divine expression of God. And since you are this divine expression of God, it's your thoughts and beliefs. You are created in His image. We are from the earth and of the earth. Right? And so it all started 4.5 billion years ago. And 4.5 billion years ago, there was something called the zinc spark. And the zinc spark was the exact moment they created the sun. An interesting fact about the sun is that that zinc spark of the sun and the creation of that plasma is the exact moment of when a soul enters the zygote. So the creation of a star is the same creation of a soul entering into a baby in the womb. And the sun, which is primarily plasma, is hydrogen. And through nuclear fusion, it's spitting off protons. And around those protons, it's basically throwing off electrons. And so electrons have a charge, and these atoms over time are pulled together. And there's an iron core to the earth. Let's use a different color. So, core of iron, let's just make this red. There's this iron core. And we'll make our earth green. I'm playing Picasso here. Cool. So, at that iron core, these charges basically formed our Earth. And around the Earth, there's a field of energy, right? And there's a magnetic pole that goes around our Earth, right? And that magnetic pole is what changes the electrons that move from the sun. So as these electrons move through the ionosphere of the Earth, through polarization, it changes the amplitude and the wavelength of the light that moves through this ionosphere. So when that light is actually changed, what it does is it allows for evolution. So 4.5 billion years ago, we had prokaryotic life. And so with prokaryotic life, which is single cellular, this allowed for eukaryotic life to happen. But what's interesting about this conversion that happened is actually due to a protein called ceruloplasmin, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. So this vibrational frequency allowed for that to happen. See, 4.5 billion years ago, the Earth was primarily hydrogen. And that's how we produce energy, it was fermentation. It was single cellular. And this protein, ceruloplasmin, basically then allowed, through iron metabolism, which is the core of our Earth, which is interesting. So this iron then basically allowed to utilize oxygen in our environment. And that's how we got eukaryotic life. So copper had to bind to iron. And what's interesting about copper compared to iron in the ceruloplasmin is that iron is the center of the earth, while iron is the center of your mitochondria. It's the center of the cell. So it allows for oxygen utilization. When that process is broken, we go back to an evolutionary state. And the evolutionary state is using hydrogen for fuel. And as we use hydrogen for fuel, we raise estrogen, prolactin, and lactate because the cell wants to survive. Now, if we do that process, and we can't utilize oxygen efficiently, we go back to prokaryotic life, and we use fermentation for energy, that's actually called cancer. That's what that's called. So the insulin and glucose dysregulation that we see that they're blaming on cancer, it's what it really is if you look at Otto Warburg's data and his research, he said that cancer cells don't utilize sugar. It's not that sugar causes cancer. It's the cell doesn't utilize it. And so since the cell can't utilize it, we see this glucose dysregulation. And the answer is not a keto diet because the cell can't utilize sugar. We need to reprogram the cell to be able to utilize glucose again. Because you need three things to make ATP. You need glucose, you need sun, and you need oxygen. Those are the three things that we need. And if you don't get those three, you're screwed and you go back to prokaryotic life. The cell wants to survive. So we're going to learn all these different factors in our lives that are blocking this flow of energy in our bodies. But what's really amazing is since your body has an iron core around it as well, so just like the earth, in the cell, we have iron, and we have a body. That's a good looking guy. And so in our body, we have a thought. And what's interesting about our thoughts is that they have a vibrational frequency that creates a field around you. You create that same field as how the earth was formed into the iron core. So, negative thoughts, hate, anger, resentment, sadness, doubt, worry, all the things that institutions have programmed in you so that they can control you are the exact things that have suppressed you and basically created a force field of energy around you that's changing the amplitude of light that's emitted outside of you. So you receive sun, you receive protonic energy from the sun through nuclear fusion, that it goes into your cells. Proteins are semiconductors of light. Your DNA is a semiconductor, is all that it is. So then your thoughts are changing the amplitude and the wavelength. They're undulating. The electrons are undulating up and down. And so as those are moving, it's actually forming a magnetic field. And it's taking the atoms around you and it's forming it into what you can hear, see, and feel. So the floor seems solid. Everything feels real. But truthfully, we live in a holographic universe. It's not even real. It's a figment of your imagination. Together, we're co-creating because originally it's all light. There's only one source and it's all light. It's all just a magnetic field. So it's the weirdest thing that we can be successful but yet do nothing. And it's dualistic. But the world has to be dualistic. There's not an option, but not a choice. And the reason why it has to be is because without cold, you wouldn't appreciate heat. Without a narcissistic relationship, you couldn't appreciate love. Without darkness, you wouldn't appreciate light. That's how this process works. So it's truly the pains, the fears, the challenges are the things that are working for you. They're actually a gift and strange wrapping paper waking you up to the infinite potential that's within you. You would make no moves. Nobody does anything unless the gun's to their head. You have to be sick. You have to have glucose dysregulation. You have to gain weight. You have to have someone that breaks up with you. Right? You have to have some occurrence. Not many people will take action unless they have pain. Right? It's through adversity man finds his purpose. And Viktor Frankl, as he went through the Holocaust, he survived because he believed he would. And he did things as far as making friends with the SS soldiers. He believed he'd get better. You know, certain other people, there were stories that they knew they weren't getting food, but they just looked at the sun. They gained the electrons from the sun because you can actually, solar beams will pick up electrons from the sun and survive. It may not be optimal, but in a survival situation, those electrons actually give you energy because we do receive energy from the sun. And when we don't get the light, we don't emit the light out, and we get symptoms in our physical body. So the latitude of light we live in, the light exposure, and we're going to go through that later with one of the lifestyle factors of environment, but the lighting you receive is crucial. It's developed in a way that's connected with nature. You have to get certain spectrums of light in the morning and the afternoon. The infrared light that you get in the morning, in the first morning light, is actually priming your melanocytes, and it acts as a UV protector. So it's like an SPF, right? That basically primes those melanocytes so that we don't burn and we don't get harmed by the radiation of the sun. And you have to have UV light. You don't have a choice. You don't get UV light, bacteria, yeast, fungus, and mold grow to perform it for you. And if you don't get the light, you end up in prokaryotic cell and using fermentation to produce energy. So there's this synergistic way that life has been created. And Genesis 1 gives us that story. Much of the Bible gives us these parables to follow. And there are great lessons, but much of it is metaphorical. People want to take things literally. So when we look at, let's say, when Jesus walked on water, did he truly walk on water? I don't know. We weren't there. And I'm not going to argue with people about it, but the deal is that he turned water into wine. He did all these things. These are metaphorical in the powers that were created. And when before Jesus passed away, he said, "You will go on and do greater works than I." He told his disciples that. That means each one of you are a divine expression of God and you have those same powers within you. And it starts with that creation of the Son. You walk on water. You ignore doubting Thomas. But when you get programmed by institutions and churches and schools and parents and colleagues and friends, that's where you get screwed. Because they don't believe you can do the things that you believe you can do. That's the only limitation you set. And that's what divinity is. Divinity is a set of limitations you set through your perception. It is not some religious thing, it's a set of limitations. And that's why I said earlier, when it comes to longevity, people don't know this, but even stem cells, everybody's running out. They want to do stem cells. They want to do NAD drips. They want to do IVs. They want all these things to live longer, and they think it's going to make them better, but with adverse effects when the power is always within you. So what you have to understand is in Chinese medicine, with stem cells, the kidney meridian controls the bone marrow. The kidney meridian deals with fear, dread, and doom. So the Bible actually says one thing, and it says, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. So when it says that, it's saying, like the Bible says 365 times, do not be afraid. But everybody's afraid. So how can you even say you're a Christian if you just believe in Jesus? Because Jesus did not say, just believe in me and you're saved. Actually, what he said was, he said, if you love me, you will follow my commandments. And he says, love thy neighbor as thyself. And the reason he said that is because you are all from the same frequency of light. And everything all is one. So when you harm someone else, you're harming yourself. So there's this, and including when you harm yourself, you're inflicting harm on others. Because you are this divine light and expression. So we have to be mindful because 98% of our thought is subconscious. We don't even know, and it's been programmed into us from society. We don't stand up. And we can't express ourselves. Now I'm saying radical stuff to maybe you guys understand, but you're a different group of people. But the average person is going to call this heresy, right? It's blasphemy, it's craziness, but it's not. Because it's physics, it's biology, it's anatomy, it's chemistry, it's biochemistry, it's all these factors all rolled into one. And until you study all the different disciplines, you can't put the pieces together, you're short pieces. And then once you see all this, you can't deny it, you cannot see it. And you don't care what anybody thinks, you don't care what anybody says, you just live that. And that's when you create the reality of one. And that's when you get all the ego things that everyone's trying to force. It is lower dimensional energy, it is in root chakra, it's in the solar plexus, it's in the sacral chakra that it's needs and wants. That's what it is. And the needs and wants are the exact resistance to the thing that you want. So everybody wants three things for their ego. They want money, they want love, they want health, and it's all for their fucking validation. It's the only reason they want things. right? They want other people to see them and acknowledge them and love them, and the love always came from within you. So if we want to create what we want, the whole secret has always been to detach. And life is more about unlearning than it is becoming something, because you've been programmed and you have belief systems, and there's fear there. You have a perfected love. But that's the great thing, there are no mistakes, there's only lessons. So what we must do is use the universe as our mirror, understanding that there's a magnetic resonance in our mind, and we can change that because you have divinity. And you can shift the perception you have on yourself, your world, and your neighbors. That's where the true power comes in. And that's how we make change, because everybody wants to force the government to change. If you rely on the government, the institutions, and your parents to make the change, nothing happens. But a courageous man wants to do that. He wants to change everything. He wants to make the world a better place. But a wise man always starts with himself. It has to start with every single one of you who takes the ownership of it. Because if you rely on RFK to take everything out of the food supply that's poisonous and bad, ain't gonna happen, right? You need to start organic, sustainable farms. You need to rotate your crops. You need to know how the food works. You need to know the latitude you live. You need to know how to care for the animals, what do they naturally eat. You have to understand these principles, right? And take the power away from the corporations. There's 127 mega corporations. And their interest is money. They're basically like Gollum, is reaching for the ring, right? I want it. Money is, they've idolatrized money. Money is their God. And they don't care the ramifications and the consequences of their actions. It doesn't matter what they do. They just want money. That's all they care about. But when you only focus on the money, there's a reckoning coming. And I promise you, as people wake up, they're not going to survive. And the way we make change, see, there's three things, right? So if you want to fight fires, what do firefighters do? They fight fires. If you want to fight crime, what do crime fighters fight? Crime, right? What do freedom fighters fight? You're feeding the energy. You're focusing on the negativity. It gives it energy. Don't worry about the politicians and what they're doing. Don't worry about what your parents are doing and what they think. Don't worry about what the churches think of you. Don't care about any of it. What's the truth? That's what we want to get to. How do I become the best version of me? What is my soul meant to experience? It's the only way there's change. Force receives force back. It's a form of control. And control leads to bondage, and then you suffer. So the whole secret has always been just to be. It's never been to create change by forcing others to do it. Attorneys make money off of that. The whole court system in divorce court is actually a bankruptcy court. The banks are involved, they make money, the attorneys are in it. The mortgage brokers, they're all in on it. Like, they know what's going on, right? And they're manipulating the system to provide for themselves. But if you don't allow it, it doesn't happen, right? There's no reason for contracts. The reason contracts exist is to try to force someone to do something. The reason you're attracting the experience is because there's a learning lesson in it for you, right? And if you make a contract with someone, you're inviting a third party to control your life. So I would never, ever get into any contracts. There should be verbal agreements, and you should be honorable, and you should treat your neighbor as yourself. That's the end of the story. Then we don't have these problems, and we don't need third parties. We don't need someone to control us and tell us how to live our life. And it all starts with understanding you're the vibration of frequency, taking responsibility for what you created in your life. And if you don't do that, you're going to be constantly mad, you're going to be constantly angry, you're going to hold on to that resentment, you're going to hold on to that bitterness. And what is that resentment, that bitterness, that anger, that sadness, that fear, that worry? What does it actually do? Remember I talked about stem cells?
It breaks down.
Right, it breaks down your body, it stops the flow of electrons. This fear deals with the kidney meridian that controls the iron metabolism, that controls the hemoglobin, right? And it's there that your body manufactures stem cells. So we can create our own stem cells. We can have longevity. When the flow of electrons stops, you die. So when we resist that flow of life, you die. Actually, when you forgive somebody that did you wrong, and you learn the consequence, there's a bigger dopamine release than when you smoke cigarettes, when you're getting done jerking off, when you smoke weed, when you drink alcohol. All these behaviors have a dopamine release because that's why people do them. Screen time, scrolling their screens because the blue light lowers their dopamine and eat more of it. You get more of a dopamine hit from forgiving your neighbor. Understanding. See, enlightenment is more about understanding. Enlightenment is not all-knowing. It's about understanding, right? It's not this mystical thing, right? The Kundalini energy that moves up and down your spinal, it's not some mystical thing. It's electron flow. That's all that it is. The Kundalini energy is electrons flowing up and down. It's a pituitary pump moving it. But if you have adhesions on your spinal cord and you have fear, resentment, sadness, worry, doubt, the electrons don't flow. It doesn't wash the cerebral spinal fluid over that pineal gland. Now what does that do? It creates amyloids in the brain. You get dementia. We end up like Joe Biden drooling on ourselves. That's what happens. So, he's dealing with probably a lot of guilt from some of the things that he's done and has been a very honest man. Usually politicians aren't. They're controlling people. We don't want to control things. Remember, we make change by not controlling things. Now, we're going to get down to some science stuff, and you're going to have questions. We've already broke down a lot of science. Does anybody not understand anything, or is this kind of all make sense? What is ATP? Adenosine triphosphate. It's the basic form of energy, is all that it is, right? It's what's produced when oxygen converts to carbon dioxide efficiently. And we're going to cover that now, right? You didn't know that?
Well, I knew it was because I learned it.
I thought you did. I thought you knew that. He's a very smart guy.
I'm glad you asked that question.
You guys are going to ask questions. I can't answer all your text messages tomorrow.
I don't want to stop your flow, but I wrote it down with CTP.
You wrote it down too?
That's what I wrote down with CTP.
Okay. Yeah.
Just don't be afraid.
Yeah. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, no fear.
Yeah.
Did I understand you right? Did you say that cancer doesn't use glucose?
Yes. Doesn't use glucose efficiently.
But I thought that's how the cancer cells survive, is by glucose, because if you cut out the sugar and you eat more
The glucose levels are elevated, but they can't get in the cell.
It's more about the management of.
Yeah, it's a management of glucose. So basically, the cell membrane is clogged usually with polyunsaturated fatty acids, and the insulin can't drive the glucose in, so you have elevated glucose, right? So when you starve the glucose, you cut the inflammation out. You start to starve the cancer cell because it's not able to be. It's like the insulin's not elevated anymore, right? You got to restore the cell's ability to utilize that glucose. Yeah, it's more the cell membrane's clogged and you can't utilize it. Yeah, there's a lot of misnomers in that misinterpretation. I will when we get into nutrition. Yeah, autophagy sucks. All right. Well, I don't want to say it sucks. There's a time and a place for it, but the fasting stuff is nonsense. It needs to end because it's actually a stress response that raises epinephrine, and there's a whole hormone cascade that happens with this, and that increases estrogen, prolactin, lactate, lowers your T3, lowers your metabolic rate, and then you can make your sex hormones because that has to convert your liver to make those, right? T3 converts your liver to make your sex hormones. So yeah, we're gonna cover that. And I want you guys to ask, and I'll answer questions with all that. Yeah, and I hope you guys have something you can stump me so I can learn something new too.
I do. Iron and copper.
We covered some of this.
Yeah. I call places that I feel good and happy like. So St. John, which is close to the equator.
Yeah.
And in the summer in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, I'm barefoot in the sand and water. But that's a iron copper ore place. That's where they get it from. So like when I'm walking around in the dirt, it's red. Does that the soil in itself?
You pick up minerals from being in the water and things like that. Yeah. I mean, there's a balance. So don't get me wrong. Okay, the general consensus in the medical field is, I'm low in iron, you take iron, but the iron's oxidizing about the placement of the mineral in the cell itself, radiant, right? So generally, when we're under stress, we're going to drive intracellular iron and intracellular calcium, pull copper out, we just place the minerals, and then we make these excess free radicals. We're going to cover this right now. Yeah, I think this will make sense when
Yeah, I just, because in my mind then, like you're going on vacation somewhere, and you kind of look into the science behind where you're going, can't you then set your mind to accept where you're going and try to get those minerals and vitamins and blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, and we're gonna cover that because in order to make your antioxidants, your body makes them. You need amino acids and you need minerals, right? Those are the things that you need to make the superoxide dismutase, to make the glutathione, right? We need those. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of taking antioxidants.
Right.
Because your body makes it. We want to give it the cofactors and then give it the sunlight to sulfate the amino acids so they can be utilized. So there's a process so that we can make more CO2, and then when we make the CO2, it actually stops gene expression, right? It actually relaxes the DNA and unwinds the DNA. That's the whole ticket, right? And there's no junk DNA, right? The people go, oh, there's all this junk DNA, and God made it for a reason. And then we can get into alien talk if you want. And where that actually came from, the European, and the, yeah, we can get into that if you want. But so what we got here is this sunlight, right? And it's part of this process of activating aerobic respiration. Oxygen has to convert into CO2. So oxygen, going to superoxide, there's 7 factors that we need to focus on when we work on this. It's water, food, rest, exercise, I spelled that wrong, mind, which is arguably the most important one, and then environment. Right? Those are the factors, right? And there's a hierarchy of this too. So I want you guys to realize with those 12 electrons, your mind is number 1. And the reason I say mind is number 1, you have to understand something. We were just talking about, you were just mentioning going on vacation.
Right.
And, oh, I go on vacation, and what about if I just feel, yeah, that plays a big role. Because when we look at a particle accelerator, scientists shot photons down that particle accelerator. And when they shot them down that particle accelerator, there was a predetermined outcome. Wherever they thought they were going to go, that's where they went. And you're controlling the photons that are emitted out of your body for frequency. So if you thought it was going down the center hole, that's where it went. Left, it went there. Right? Oh, it went there. So your preconceived notion where you thought it was going to go, and that general thesis you had, it caused it. So you have more of an impact on the world around you than even you realize. So these are the factors, but mind is number 1, environment's number 2. Number 3 is going to be your posture. Number 4 is going to be exercise. And number 5 is the food. But everyone's obsessed with the food. I don't understand why everyone's so obsessed with the food when your mind's more important, but they don't understand. They just lack the knowledge. And they want to blame the FDA, the AMA, politicians, the agricultural system, the commercial food system. It's their fault that we're sick. It's their fault that we're tired. It's their fault that I don't feel good and I have brain fog. It's bullshit. It's not, yes, they're contributing factors, but you have control over this, and this is how we stop it, is by not participating in the system anymore and going to local farmers and realizing what we're eating and having the knowledge. And that's what I really want you guys to get away from this, is how much power you really have to change the flow of electrons and outsourcing this and not trying to blame the government and not even just teach you what foods to buy and only rely on the food. Because if you only rely on the food, I don't know how many people eat healthy and they still feel like crap. They can't figure it out.
But what about food allergies?
Food allergies are a copper-iron redox problem. So copper is a binding to iron to make hemoglobin. It's affecting the reticular endothelial system, and you can't clear all the metabolic waste product. So if you want to fix your gut and you want to fix your allergies, you fix the reticular endothelial system. And you don't. And me personally, this isn't medical advice, YouTube. But the deal is when it comes to focusing on killing off bacteria and viruses, I believe that they're there for a purpose and they need to be there.
Okay.
Right? So I don't believe in the germ theory, I believe in the disconnection from love theory. So what happens is you have emotional situations in the subconscious mind that are actually allowing an environment for those to exist. And they're existing actually to save your ass. because they're performing sulfation for you. They're hydrogen sulfide and sodium sulfate. If you can't do that, you go back to fermentation to produce energy, and you get cancer. So when you just take an antibiotic, when you just take an antiparasitic, and you don't get to the root of the problem, which is the flow of electrons, you actually cause more of a problem. You're dealing with one localized system. I have an invader in my body, I want to kill it. But that thing was actually there to save me. It's synergistic, it is not opportunistic. And so we want to change its physics, right? Everybody wants to focus on the microbiome, they want to focus on the food, they want to focus on the vaccine, they want to focus on the hormones, the neurotransmitters, it's this, it's that, and every doctor tells you another thing. I don't think it's any of that. Those are all subsets of reactions because the flow of electrons was disrupted. And that happens because genes are expressed when this flow of electrons doesn't happen. And the mitochondria, which is that powerhouse of the cell that makes your ATP, right? It's this little organelle in your cell that's kind of shaped like a jelly bean. The cell goes around it and has lysosomes and peroxisomes that metabolize fat and all these other things. But this mitochondria has 4 stages of energy in it, and those 4 stages it has to move through efficiently to come out with this CO2, right? So oxygen must convert to superoxide. If you don't do that, if you don't do this, you're going to destroy the superoxide pulse. Fluoride and chlorine destroy the superoxide pulse. So these chemicals do that. Also emotions, also lack of sleep, there's a number of factors, but chemicals like chlorine and fluoride are notorious. And remember, fluoride is fluorine, which is PFOAs, BPAs, right? Phthalates. Those are all fluorine. So, in that, knowing that, we want to make sure that we make enough superoxide. And free radicals aren't all bad. There's a balance. There's a natural flow to this. So we need superoxide. We need hydrogen peroxide, right? We need hydroxyradicals. I don't know if we really need that. Peroxynitrate. These things all exist, and they're actually anti-pathogenic, antibacterial. They kill off pathogens. Nitric oxide is an antioxidant, but you know what? It can also be very toxic if we have a lot of nitric oxide. So everything is in balance. Actually, glutathione isn't a very strong binder of heavy metals. You just take glutathione and detox the heavy metals, and it pulls it out, and it goes back in the system, and sometimes it makes you worse. You need cysteine and glutathione and alpha-ketoglutarate to make glutathione. That's what you need, those amino acids. I don't understand why people do this. Fix the system. Give yourself the raw nutrients, and you fix the CO2 levels. And you stop the gene expression, and you stop the disease. Because all it is a balance of excess free radicals that deteriorate cell function and lead to chronic illness. Every single one. Heart disease, dementia, Alzheimer's, cancer, diabetes, all the age-related diseases. And we can even get into stuff that you're born with and say, well, it probably happened in the mother's womb. It's a manifestation. My personal belief is some of it's actually karmic. If you got someone with cerebral palsy, usually they're pull out the womb funny and everything like that, but I think they have something to overcome in their life. It's a gift and green trafficking paper in some way, even though people think it's a death sentence and suffering. Your daughter, all divorce. But how do you feel about it?
I know that was her life path. I know we believe her as well now that this is something karmic that she's repaying in this lifetime.
Yep.
And she's going to be 25 and she understands this now, which is a gift.
You know why she doesn't walk yet? She has things in her subconscious.
Yes.
That's her journey.
Yes.
Right? But you understand that.
Yes.
So it's not painful, is it?
No. And it could be,
It could be. Most people are victims, right?
Yeah. We can wake up every day miserable
She
and
can walk
pissed
again.
off at this life, but we choose not to.
But everybody, the medical doctors say it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Been too long, never going to happen, right?
From-
But how many people do you know that have been paralyzed and can walk again? Years later,
Yes.
right? It grows back together. So what do we need to repair our nerves? Right? You got to lower your glutamate levels. You need cholesterol. You need B vitamins. You need sunlight.
I think that's the hardest thing for me is that I know this and she's not ready.
But it's her journey.
Yes.
Right? So you can't,
I
God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's not your journey.
Exactly.
You were born to walk her down the path.
Yes.
Her choice to take it.
Yes.
So we've come to terms with that, and that was your thing you had to overcome this lifetime.
Yes.
So it doesn't impact you, doesn't stress you out.
I'm at peace now.
Yeah, but you had to learn that, right? That was your soul's overcoming,
Yes.
and now you get to bring that to other people, which now awakens other people, and that's how we make the change, right? That's how this whole thing ends with all the oppressive governments and the institutions and everything like that. You know, one of the worst ones is the Catholic Church, and I don't know if you guys know about the Knights of Templar. Does anybody know about the Knights of Templar? You do?
We're talking about the people who've been transferring pilgrims from Europe to Jerusalem back in years. Like,
They may have, I don't know about that.
they actually had the first benefit system developed.
They were hired by the Catholic Church by Constantine to actually protect the fact that the awakening happens in your mind, and much of the stories in the Bible are metaphorical, and that the journey to awakening and basically stopping the cycle of reincarnation is actually in your mind.
But we're talking about temporary, right?
Templar is here, right? It's your pineal gland, right? The power's there, and that cerebrospinal fluid washing over the pineal gland, right? They wanted to suppress that because what did Constantine want to do? He wanted to rewrite the Bible and serve him that he could monetize it because it's shit. If we don't get on top of this now, we're going to lose out on this. This is getting too popular.
You're talking about Byzantine emperor, right?
Constantine.
Yes.
Yeah. Constantine, yeah. So it's biblical, it's historical, everything's all entwined, and this is really kind of cool.
So I've heard that Christian was actually originally Christian with Christ I am, basically. So
Yeah, because he's within you, right? Remember what I said earlier? He said you'll go on to do greater works than I. And not only that, but we all know that we're from the same source of energy, that creation of the sun, right? So yeah, you are Christ. Just don't know it. And it's all subconscious. It's the suppression. And the Catholic Church and Constantine has been in charge of that, right? And so it's time to wake up and end that, right? So we're going to make the change, right? But this is the cellular process. When we doubt ourselves, this is actually what's happening. This is called aerobic respiration, right? So oxygen has to convert to superoxide. We have vitamin C, vitamin E, right? And you don't want to take ascorbic acid. It's not natural. It's made from mold. It's GMO. It's from corn, right? It destroys an enzymatic process, the tyrosinase enzyme. And if you take ascorbic acid and you destroy the tyrosinase enzyme, you have a copper iron redox problem. And what happens when you cause a problem with copper iron redox? Prokaryotic life, use hydrogen fuel, we call it cancer. Right? It's not the same. Yes, you can take ascorbic acid, yeast and lipid layer virus. I'm not going to say it's useless, but it's not something you want to use on a regular basis. You can do AMLAC. No problem.
Vitamin C is constant.
Vitamin C, maybe short term if you were sick, and yeast and lipid layer virus, ascorbic acid. You want AMLAC, right? It's camu. That's what best starts. He deals with nutraceuticals. So if you need a good source of supplements, he's the guy to talk to. Find him later.
Only whole food supplements. No isolated.
We're hiding money. We spend time in nature together. So maybe one day I'll get him going out hunting with me. So this has to convert, right? So oxygen goes to superoxide. Now, we need nitric oxide and superoxide. This mutates minerals and amino acids to take our superoxide and convert it into hydrogen peroxide. Otherwise, we wind up with, oh no, that's called peroxynitrate, right? So peroxynitrate leads to heart disease, leads to dementia. It causes lipid peroxidation, causes protein degradation, right? So basically, fats and protein, or fats and carbs, have to go into the Krebs cycle to make our ATP. If you don't do that, you're going to cause this hormonal cascade that increases ammonia. And when we increase ammonia, we increase cortisol, right? Everybody knows what cortisol is, but it needs to be in rhythm. So if cortisol is elevated chronically because we're making too many free radicals, this cortisol here ends up increasing histamine. Now, if you have high histamine, you have leaky gut, you have autoimmune, right? It's dysregulated. Now, you need histamine, it's stimulatory, but it has to be in check. And high cortisol levels for long periods degrade tissue, right? Happens when you get too many cortisone shots, breaks down the tissue, it gets weak. Same thing, histamine does the same thing, it weakens the immune system. You also have high serotonin. Well, everyone's like, oh, serotonin's good for you. No, not in high amounts, it has to be regulated. So it's going to give you anxiety, it's going to give you like psychosis. So when we look at SSRIs and all these mass shootings, and they're taking these selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and these people go into psychosis, they don't even know what they're doing because they were taking a drug that increases serotonin levels. They weren't depressed because their serotonin was low, they were depressed because they didn't receive light. Their dopamine levels are dysregulated because they didn't receive light. So that's what blue light does, and artificial light, and fluorescent lighting in here and all these things, these are actually blue blockers. So they block that 400 nanometer wavelength light, and it's also not all bad. We need it because it increases cortisol, it wakes us up in the morning. We're going to cover that a little bit when we cover environment. But serotonin is dysregulated. Well, now what happens, histamine and serotonin are high. So now you're going to raise estrogen, you're going to raise prolactin, and you're going to raise lactate. You're going to use fermentation. You're going to use fermentation to produce energy now. So now you're going back to that evolutionary state using hydrogen again, right? And that lowers your metabolic rate. We get fat because it lowers T3 that then has to go in here and make our sex hormones. So we wonder why we have this society now that doesn't have a sex drive, they don't want to procreate, they're tired all the time, they lack motivation. Yeah, they're suppressed by the system. They're under artificial light. They're not getting any sun, they're all living indoors. So if you're living indoors, you're not receiving light, you're getting these nasty RF frequencies from 5G. You're getting microwaves from 3G and 4G. What's it going to do to your vibration and cause that full electron to do? Right, you're going to make peroxynitrate. What does Wi-Fi blue light do? Drives intercellular calcium uncoupling nitric oxide forming peroxynitrate. Right here. Nitric oxide uncouples it, comes down to peroxynitrate. Heart disease, dementia, right? All these age-related diseases, fatty acid lipidation or fatty acid peroxidation. All those are occurring because of the behaviors that are just normal to society. But if you are suppressed and you don't feel good, you don't fight oppressive regimes. You just accept what is. So the power is within you. You can change these things through these lifestyle factors in the flow of electrons. So now we got enough nitric oxide, this is we're in the hydrogen peroxide, but let's just say that you're driving some iron with Wi-Fi. Not only does calcium move intracellularly, but also iron moves in that channel with it. So as iron moves in this channel, it oxidizes. If you have dysregulated iron, you're going to form hydroxyl radicals. Your body's rusting from the inside out. Is exactly what's occurring. So when you're rusting from the inside out, this is when we get all the age-related diseases again. Heart disease, dementia, Alzheimer's, cancer, diabetes. It's the 5 horsemen, right? Those are what's going on. And for that matter, seizures are a big part of this. Seizures are a big reason because it's raising the glutamate levels inside of the nerves. It's dysregulating the neurotransmitters. So if we want to fix seizures, we have to fix our copper iron redox. So now one thing that helps, one of the big fads right now is hydrogen water. Everyone wants to drink hydrogen water. Now I would rather have someone breathe it, but it's only a band-aid. It doesn't fix the copper iron redox issue. Hydrogen is H, hydroxyl radicals are OH. H2O. Okay. Chemistry. It basically neutralizes the inflammation. But why do you want to keep drinking hydrogen water? Fix the damn issue at the root. How do we fix copper binding to iron? Well, you need copper. You need to eliminate the polyunsaturated fatty acids because they lower hepcidin in your liver and create unbound iron. And you need retinal forms of vitamin A to activate your ceruloplasmin. So vitamin A in retinol form, not beta carotene from carrots. It doesn't convert to vitamin A. It's not retinol form. It does convert to vitamin A, but it's not the usable form that you need for iron regulation. So you need copper. Everyone's taking notes. Vitamin A. And eliminate the polyunsaturated fatty acids, and then you also need sunlight, because it activates the ceruloplasmin with the vitamin A so that you can make hemoglobin and utilize oxygen. The core thing that light created took prokaryotic life, turned it to eukaryotic life. Iron is life. And everything is interconnected, even the plants. Like, we're carbon-based semiconductors, our proteins are carbon-based. And the plants are carbon-based. The only difference between us and a tree is that plants have a magnesium core or even iron core. The only difference between the cell. So,
Plants don't have the convert. Plants don't have the convert.
I know, but the core of it is the difference, right? So that's stuff. So we're both carbon-based. So the thing with it is that plant is alive, just like you. It's formed from light, yeah.
Tree can't change its environment, we can.
A tree can change its environment because it can actually grow and shade the other trees so the other ones don't live. So it does change the environment, right? It's not as adaptable, correct? But it's still a living thing, right? So this is where vegans can't complain anymore. That this is where I'm going.
I was vegan.
Right, we're vegan, we're probably sick. So you lack B vitamins and some other things. So there's ways you can make it healthier if you're really adverse to it, and we'll cover some of that stuff. If you're really adverse to being vegan, I get it. You have this thing there that you love life and animals, but everything is from the sun. It's all from the vibrational frequency. Just because a plant doesn't scream when you kill it, doesn't mean it's not living.
So copper, vitamin A, and reduce
What's that? It's another bad belief system that people have. What's that?
So copper, vitamin A, and get rid of PUFA.
And sunlight.
And sunlight,
Yeah. So that's how we fix that, right? And the best source of retinol forms of vitamin A and copper is going to be organ meat.
okay.
Liver, heart, kidneys.
Vitamin D, I heard you mention that.
I'm going to. So vitamin D is one of these things that we haven't even got out of nutrition yet. Vitamin D is 25-hydroxy D. But the problem is when you take it in supplemental form, even if you take K2 to stop the calcification that happens in the arteries, it's superfluous. It doesn't matter. It doesn't work very well. You have to get 125-hydroxy D. You have to sulfate. Remember what I said about sulfation? Hydrogen sulfide has to convert to sodium sulfate. If you don't do that, you have problems. Sulfation is in charge of strong protein bonds, making hormones, making neurotransmitters, regulating your iron. All these factors are related to sulfation. You need light to make your vitamin D. Do not take a supplement that your body makes endogenously. Exogenous supplements have as much, or maybe sometimes even more effect as taking a pharmaceutical drug. So there's a backlash. Now it doesn't happen right away, it's prolonged, but there are side effects that happen over time that people will just put in the back of their mind as cognitive dissonance.
Could you repeat? Don't take supplements that are...
Don't take supplements exogenously that your body makes endogenously, yeah.
So like that map that you have on your website would be the best way.
If you live in this area, yeah, the Spurdy light. Yeah, it's on my website.
Yeah.
Yeah, protectrehab.com. If you go on that website and then you click on store and then you select the subcategory lighting, it's there. But you also need infrared light. You need both, right? And we're going to cover that in lighting. So any of these that are out of balance are going to dysregulate that whole hormonal process. And everybody wants to focus on the hormones, right? Everyone, it's bullshit. It's the flow of electrons. It's oxygen, carbon dioxide. And your emotions control that too. So when you only focus on nutrition and sunlight, it's bullshit because you could suppress the flow of electrons just with a belief system. And you create peroxynitrate, you create hydroxyl radicals, and glutamate levels, right? All of those are elevated with negativity. And not just what you think about, it's the things you don't even think of in the subconscious mind. So this is why we don't judge situations. The point of life is just to be and use the universe as our mirror. And we can change that, right? So now we need catalysts to finish off this process. And if we have too much too much hydrogen peroxide or hydroxyl radical. You know, glutathione is just mop up, right? Remember what I said earlier, to make glutathione you need alpha-ketoglutarate, you need cysteine, right? And not leucine, leucine is proteins, is lysine, right? So we need these 3 amino acids to make glutathione. And then sunlight. And then we can make that glutathione. But that'll neutralize hydroxyl radicals and hydrogen peroxide. Then the final thing, catalase. Guess what brings catalase to the surface of the skin? I already said! Sunlight. Right? You have to bring the red blood cells to the surface of the skin. Now you bring the catalase to the surface because you ate the amino acids from the protein and you got the minerals from your organ meats. So it brings the red blood cells to the surface of the skin. And when that happens, it activates the ATPase enzyme. Now it's spinning. And as that ATPase enzyme spins, it utilizes calcium. This is why I promote raw milk. Right? So raw milk with calcium activates the ATPase enzyme, spins, brings catalase to the surface, increases CO2, stops gene expression, but then it also increases your hydrochloric acid. The parietal cells get activated with calcium and sunlight. That's all that it is. So I have poor digestion. I don't feel good. I can't eat protein. It doesn't agree with me. Bullshit. You just lack sunlight. That's really what it is. You lack sunlight and you lack calcium. You need calcium to offset the phosphorus from the protein. You need fruit and fructose to offset the phosphorus from the protein. You need fructose and calcium. So we'll go more into that when we get into food. But there's a system that works together with all these factors. And it is not what we've been told, and it is not, see, everyone's myopic. Not everyone, but most people are myopic. They want simple solutions to life. And in life isn't so simple. It's usually multifaceted. We can't just look at an epidemiological study and say, these people live this long in the blue zone, so we're going to live this way. Because there's too many factors, right? There's 7 factors that I preach to all improve this flow of electrons and make more CO2. And we can't bitch and moan about global warming and everything else. I'm not saying there's not climate change occurring, because that would be idiotic. There is. There's water levels rising, there's temperature changes. But is it really because we're polluting the environment, or is it because there's a shift on the axis of the Earth? Right? If I say that high CO2 levels stop gene expression, why do they want to suppress CO2 levels? Does that make any sense to you? We're at 400 parts per million right now. Over 10 years, we were 200. You know what we had in the Paleolithic era? 1,400. Thank you. 10 times. What the fuck? 10 times the amount of CO2. And guess what? We had the biggest animals, the best forests that ever survived. Paleolithic era. More CO2 in the environment. So it stops gene expression, it creates evolution faster, there's lots of benefit to CO2 levels. So, you know, it's not, again, it's a money grab, right? It's Gollum from the Lord of the Rings. Money precious! Money! Right? They're drooling on themselves. That's all that's going on. So we have to fix this process. We can't be so myopic that we're only looking at, oh, I don't feel good, I need to go to the doctor and get a hormonal injection, or I need to figure out what supplement to take. Because that's the message that I get all the time on Facebook or Instagram is, what supplement do I take? And this is not a one-word answer. This is just an hour and a half lecture that I put together so that you can understand how everything is integrated together, and this is just the beginning. It goes, I mean, this is going to keep going. So, this is the key to life, and this is how life happened through creation and evolution. And has anybody got any questions for me? Yeah.
I think you're gonna go over this for nutrition.
Yeah.
As far as organ meats go.
Yes.
Optimally, yeah, and we can get it through the actual meat.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of supplements for the people that can't get the organ meats necessarily, or can't.
Yeah, it's
It tastes
oxidized.
like shit.
It's oxidized though.
Yeah, it tastes like that.
I get it.
So
grind it up in your food and get over it.
yeah, I've got some pictures of me cutting it
Yeah.
how hard.
Yeah.
It's just disgusting.
Yeah.
But as far as the supplements
Mhm.
go, yeah, it's not optimal, but
Yeah.
is it okay?
It's kind of stressful, right? I mean, it's proteins that are degraded, right? So it's what happens when you eat proteins that are incomplete proteins or damaged, you end up misfolding proteins. So you end up misfolding proteins, right? And so if we misfold proteins, that's called amyloids. Overstimulates the immune
So
system.
why are the supplements, why are the organic supplements?
Because usually they're heat processed, they're dry.
When they're what?
They're usually heat processed,
Okay.
right? If they're cold processed, I don't know, I have to test it, but.
But if I cook the organ meats, am I not supposed to cook the organ
Yeah, you
meats?
can. Oh yeah, I know. I just cut them in
I
little
know.
pieces. I know.
I know.
Yeah.
Can you freeze them too?
But yeah, I guess that's.
Become primal. It's in your roots. You're just sun.
But, so, what's the difference, so if I'm cooking it, it's still going to heat,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah, you're degrading some proteins. You cause AGEs and ALEs. I
Okay,
mean, but I mean, it's either that or like there are foodborne pathogens. We
okay,
don't want to be so stupid that we don't realize there are bacteria. Yes, we get sunlight. Yes, it optimizes your immune system, increases your hydrochloric acid, so you have a less chance of getting infection. You increase alpha MSH, which is antimicrobial, because it's activating the supercharismatic nucleus in your brain. Yes. But let's not be stupid, you know what I mean? And let's cook our food that's been sitting on the shelf for God knows how long, and probably has grown bacteria because the food chain is broken.
so I
You
did.
did, if you just killed the animal, like actually when I was on that trip out in Canada, I was on the Arctic Circle. I just took a bite right out of the liver right there. They're like, you won't do it. I'm like, oh yeah? And they didn't pay me. They were supposed to pay me. I won the bet. They didn't pay me. Cheap asses.
So I guess, because I asked, there's a company that I found in Wisconsin that they just do straight, they dehydrate.
Yeah.
And they don't add anything else to it, it's just, they put it in capsules. I used that when I was traveling, just so I didn't have organ meats. Is that a better source if it's just dehydrated, or is that still just, like low temperature
It's
dehydrated?
individual case basis. I don't really know without looking at the product and really
You have
investigating.
some on your website that I was taking.
No, I don't have any on my website.
Or you have some.
I have some in there, but yeah, that's still the best option is to eat the real thing.
Right.
It's never going to be to take a pill. Yeah. I mean, like, if
But I
a
think
patient is
those
adverse
from
or
here.
nutrient deficient, I'll do what I got to do to try to fix the process for them. But I always try to get people to do the most optimal way
Okay.
and try to coach them through their adversity. There's just some limitation in their head, you know. It's there's multiple ways around things, right? If they won't do one thing, we can maybe figure out another. It may not be optimal, but we can pretty much get them healthy again.
Can you use cod liver oil as a substitute?
It does have vitamin A, but it is a polyunsaturated fatty acid. We'll cover omega-3s when we get through that, right? So, but yeah, for sure, you can use cod liver oil. I do use it with people that will not eat organ meat because it has vitamin A, but organ meat is going to be the better choice because omega-3s still are a polyunsaturated fatty acid that lack hydrogen bonds, and they will cause oxidative stress under light, and light moves electrons. So what would you rather do? Not get light or take omega-3s? Omega-3s actually store light, so in a cold weather environment, omega-3s can be beneficial.
Well, I've been doing both. I mean, I eat liver twice a week.
You probably don't need to do both.
But I've been taking the
Yeah.
cod liver oil.
Yeah, and you got the spurty light too, I think, right?
Right.
So you probably don't need to take the cod liver oil.
Okay.
I think you can just get by with organ meat.
All right.
Yeah, I would just do that.
How do you like your liver?
I like liver.
I like liver too,
We
but how do you like
grew
your
up eating liver and onions. I mean, it's cooked. I never thought about just eating it raw.
Yeah, you're Irish,
But when
right?
I take it out of the package, I'll lick the blood.
So wait, no oil, like, so I don't know if we covered this, but.
Yeah, we haven't covered
Okay,
this. We will.
Okay,